Now, just a few weeks ago, I was saying Boston College was going to win 7 or 8 games. And now we're at the point where I'm looking at it going, man, they've got to beat Holy Cross or they are in serious trouble of winning another game for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Happy Wednesday, everyone. On today's show, we're going to start talking about Holy Cross, how big of a game this is and why I'm still concerned about it. And I'm going to go down the rabbit hole here and talk about what happens if BC loses this game. And then we're going to look at some ACC expansion talk because we didn't get a chance to fully dive in and explore what happened last Friday. Now, we are now in Holy Cross week. In the rear view, you have to put the NIU game. You have to look ahead to a team that BC is going to be playing that has a huge history against Boston College. This team has played BC since 1896. Now, since 1986, they've only played BC twice. BC beat them 62-14 in 2018, and they played them in 1986. But this Holy Cross team that's coming into Chestnut Hill on Saturday is not the same Holy Cross team that we saw 5 years ago. Bob Chesney, the head coach of the Crusaders, has this team clicking, and he is one of the hottest coaches in college football in the FCS ranks, and there's a reason for that. Last year, Holy Cross went 12-1. Their only loss came in the playoffs when they lost to now national champions of the FCS, South Dakota State Jackrabbits. So this team is better than any FCS squad you can think of in recent memory that has played BC, whether it's Wagner or Maine or URI or Villanova. Doesn't matter who BC has played in the FCS. Holy Cross is playing at a better level than any of them. They have a quarterback that plays really well. They had a running back, Jordan Fuller, who had 4 touchdowns last week. And they have an absolute animal at linebacker who's like, the only way I can think of referring to him is the Luke Kuechly of FCS. His name is, I didn't even have it in front of me, is Jacob Dobbs. Jacob Dobbs had 21 tackles in their first game against Merrimack. That just reeks of Luke Kuechly. And this is a guy that's going to be like a first 2 or 3 round draft pick. And Holy Cross has him. They have Matthew Sluka, who is a very good quarterback. And why I'm bringing this all up is because after watching BC lose to NIU, a team that went 3-9, and yes, the NIU fans can keep jumping into my comment section and telling me that they're better than I gave them credit for. That's fine. But if this is a BC show, if BC comes out flat like they did against NIU, if they continue to make the same mistakes that they made against NIU, they are going to be in danger of losing their first FCS game against an FCS squad in the last 33 attempts. And folks, you talk about what lows this program has hit. Losing to Holy Cross, I don't care how good they are, but losing to an FCS squad is scary. That is low. That's lower to me. That is lower than UConn. That's lower than Rutgers. That's lower than NIU. That is that makes you an even bigger punching bag for all the pundits, for the Barstools and Felger and Mazes who just love to make jokes about Boston College. This would bottom out the program. And the reason it would bottom out the program is because you had then just lost your first 2 games of the season before you even hit the ACC part of your schedule against a MAC team. BC had never lost to a MAC team before, and an FCS team, which they haven't lost to any FCS school in the most recent, modern era. BC cannot do this, because if that happens, where does this team go? You have to win this game, because after this, you get FSU. If you watch that FSU game against LSU, you saw what BC did against NIU. You see the writing on the wall, what's going to happen there, folks. FSU's got, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, on top of Trey Benson and Jordan Travis, is going to really, really be the biggest challenge BC faces all year. And it's going to take everything in their power to stay in this game or not just get blown out. Then you play Louisville. And so it doesn't get easier after this. Boston College, Jeff Hafley so we have watched, we have watched BC struggle up against every opponent. Not just struggle, but play close. I think play close is more the term I want to use here. Whether it's Texas State, whether it's Maine, UMass, you name the team that they've played under Jeff Hafley, he's never been able to separate against any of these schools. They always are close. And that is worrisome against a Holy Cross team that made their bones winning in weird ways last year. So if BC keeps this close, I am very worried that Holy Cross will do something to win the game. Remember, they had like a Hail Mary, they had a punt return. They've all, they won a bunch of games in really fluky ways. And against a team like BC, that in the past where BC was playing strong, and I'll even say it, like under Steve Adazio never lost to these types of teams. This would be no problem. He'd figure out a way to win these games, right? But it seems like with the new staff, they let these teams hang around. They play to their level, and they don't put any if you were to think of what Jeff Hafley has done at Boston College so far, can you think of a game that they've actually put someone away and you're just like, okay, that game's over? I think maybe the Georgia Tech game in 2020 might be the first one, and maybe the only one. Because you had Louisville was close last year. NC State obviously was close. Maine was close. You just never put a team away. I'm worried, folks. I am very worried about this Holy Cross game, because I have not seen BC get out there and put it they need to go out there and put this team away. And I don't know if they can do that. They keep saying they're going to do it, but I haven't seen it yet. So this is a big worry for me. Boston College is on upset alert against Holy Cross. I don't know. I have looked everywhere for odds. A lot of bookmakers don't make odds for FCS games, but I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't think I would. Even if I think BC is going to win, and I'll save my predictions for Friday with Mitch, I would not put any money on BC covering a spread against this team. When you go to defense like that, Dobbs is not going to allow Thomas Castellanos to do the magic things that he did last week. If he's in his face, and I think he will be. He had 2 quarterback pressures last week, 2 quarterback hits. I'm worried. I'm worried, folks, because in a moment, I'm going to talk about what happens if BC loses and what that all means. It's going to get ugly. We'll get into that in just a moment. But if you are looking for your championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the parts will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusion apply. This is Locked on BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. And I saw a interesting statistic up on Eagle Insider in our comment section, and I double checked it. It's absolutely right. In 2021, BC had a high moment when they won against an SEC team, beating Missouri at home in a very exciting game. And remember, storming the field, you're feeling good. And it felt like even without Phil Dracovic, because that was Dennis Grosel, quarterbacking, the BC was heading in the right direction. Since that game in 2021, Boston College is 5-16. 5-16. That is bad. That, in a lot of times, in a lot of schools, that would be enough for someone to lose their job. So for this segment, let's look at, I want to be realistic here. There's a potential that Holy Cross could win this game on Saturday. I said it in the first segment that I'm worried that if BC can't figure things out, they're going to lose. So say BC goes out there and they get shocked. Holy Cross leaves Chestnut Hill champion, with the win, and BC drops to 0-2. What does that mean? What does that mean for the future of this program? Well, you're looking at potentially, if you can't beat Holy Cross, if the problems that you saw against NIU are endemic of what's going on with this program, and it's just maybe something else different that goes on, and they can't put 2 and 2 together, then does the staff move on? Like, does the administration move on at that point? Like, you're 0-2 against NIU and Holy Cross, 2 games that you were supposed to win. Then you got Florida State, who's a freaking buzzsaw right now. Louisville, who's playing pretty well. And all of a sudden, you're in the 3rd week of September with a fan base that is already frigid towards your team, and things are getting way worse. Would the staff cut bait? Now, originally, I would say no. We all know the stories of Boston College athletics, how they hang on to coaches way too long, whether it was Jim Christian or Steve Adazio. It just felt like it went on a couple years too long. And because the thought is that the school is cheap, that they don't want to spend the money for buyouts, that even if we still think that this is going nowhere, that they'll wait till the end of the year, or they won't make a move at all. I don't think that's the case, though. The Jim Christian example is the one I keep going back to, that says to me that this program is, the school will pull the trigger if things aren't working. And I believe that if BC bottoms out, if BC cannot beat an FCS squad, that is about as low as you're going to get. And no disrespect to Holy Cross. You're an FCS school. A school like Boston College is paying millions of dollars to beat you, and you can't even do that piece. That is worrisome. That would be grounds for a change. I could see BC pulling the trigger, and I think it would be, if that's the case, if they lose, you have to make the move. You have to show the fan base that you're serious about winning. Development and having a nice coach that's friendly and all that. And I have no disrespect to Jeff Hafley. Obviously he was on our podcast. We have a good relationship, but like we're looking at the future of Boston College sports. Getting your ducks in a row early could potentially figure out what's going on with this team and maybe get a jolt into it so that you have a little bit of blood, like a lifeblood going on. And B, get you going for the future. Like, you can start looking at other programs and figuring out what you want to do for your head coaching job. So I would say if they lose this game, I think there's a strong possibility that BC could be one of those coaches like Jeff Collins last year for Georgia Tech, where they just cut bait and say, okay, we're going to start over in the middle of the season. Maybe for the rest of the year, they go with, Rob Chudzinski and have him run the program for the next 2 months. He's an experienced coach. He knows what he's doing. You also have, Azar Abdul Rahim. He might want to audition. You could figure something out there. but I could see it because look, I mean, the writing's on the wall. You got to win this game. I keep going back to this. Like, if you lose against Holy Cross, this season is going right down the toilet. And Boston College, its perception, the perception of the program is bad right now. And there's lots of reasons why it's bad. Some of it has nothing to do with Halfley. It's just, whether you think that Father Leahy's not doing a good job paying, with NIL and all that stuff. That is one thing. But think about how bad it's going to be if you lose to an FCS squad and then you lose to UConn and then you possibly go, if you lose this weekend, there's a potential you go 0-12. If you can't figure things out. And I'm telling you folks, I'm not there yet. I'm throwing out hypotheticals right now. What happens? I mean, I think there's too much talent for that to happen, but you gotta be able to try to scrape together some respect in this program, and losing to Holy Cross would be the end of it. Now, hopefully they figure this out. I still think you go back and watch the tape, go on to Eagle Insider and read Mitch's offensive recap. They made tons of mistakes. Yes. And the coaching staff did not do any favors of getting them ready and playing at their top level. But all those drops, just if they could minimize a few more, like get their penalties down. And I saw people saying penalties has always been an issue with BC. BC was 45th in the country in penalties last year. It wasn't an issue last year. It was an issue last week. So they can change that. The drops. I don't know if that's something you can, I imagine it's something you can change, but hopefully like a week with Thomas Castellanos, who I imagine is going to be the starting quarterback, getting more on the same page and getting that repetition with him may help a little bit more. Get a hope that that's the case. And maybe just the opening yips from, Takis and Griffin kind of go away, and then they could fix this and win. Because if you win, then you take your lumps against Florida State and you get ready for Louisville. If you lose, it's a whole other story. In our final segment, I want to talk about the ACC expansion, my thoughts on that and why it may not be the worst thing that's going on, but it doesn't really change much. We'll get into all that in a moment. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Now, head on over to Eagle Insider for tons of information going on this week. I have injury reports up there. We've got Mitch's breakdowns of the film. We have scouting reports. We got everything. So just head on over there. Become a subscriber. If you're listening live until midnight, it's 50% off. If you haven't signed up now is the perfect time to do it. Now, we're moving on past the Holy Cross game just for the end of this episode. Before we get to that, though, reminder, Tom Devitt, general manager of Friends of the Heights, is going to be on our show tomorrow to talk about Friends of the Heights and what he plans on doing with them. Can't wait to hear about him, why he took this job, and everything else in between. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that out. Now, on Friday, before the catastrophe on Saturday at Alumni Stadium, the ACC expanded. They voted for 3 teams to join: Stanford, SMU, and Cal. And they're going to be bringing in a ton of new money because of ESPN's, the way that they structured this deal, and the fact that they're not going to take any money for the first 9 years. So that money is going to be distributed amongst the programs, from what I've heard, to help cover expenses for travel. And it also will give performance bonuses. So teams that are doing the best in the conference. So for football, it'll be great for teams like Florida State and Duke, who will be the best 2 teams in the conference. And then for basketball and other things, it'll also help with that. So it's good because I heard something like $70-something million they're going to be able to spread around. That's a lot of money. And this may not be the best move that they could make, but given where they're at, it's all they could do. And they're making the best. They're making chicken salad out of chicken. Blah. You know what I mean? Yeah, you should have probably tried to grab Washington and Oregon when you had the chance. And from every word I've heard, they had the chance. They screwed that up. You should have been able to, I don't know if there's any other should haves out there, maybe try to get some of the other Pac-12 teams. But these three schools are the closest you're going to get for fits for your conference. Now, my thoughts, this is not going to placate Florida State and Clemson at all, and UNC, because the three of them voted no. And this is probably just going to piss them off even more. So they're going to continue to get angry and want to leave the conference. It seemed like it was placating these three schools, or two schools, Clemson and Florida State specifically, by trying to help raise the money that they need so that, Clemson can probably afford an offensive coordinator that can actually move the ball against Duke. I'm sorry. This is me being an outside college football. I get it. But if you are a Clemson fan listening to this, me rip on your team. Yes, I cover Boston College. You can make fun of me for losing to NIU. I didn't play in that game. I just cover the team. But at the end of the day, I still think Clemson and Florida State will leave if they get the chance to. I don't think it's going to change anything in that way. But for the schools that are left behind, once those two schools go to whatever the super conference is, Big Ten or SEC, it does make a world of difference, because the last thing that ACC needs to do is to have the conference splinter like the Pac-12 did. You need the stock and you need the teams to keep it going. And you grab two Power 5 teams and one team that's a sleeping giant that I think just needed the platform to get up there. That's a positive. I don't believe that all these other teams in the ACC are just going to immediately find invites in underneath their pillows to the Big Ten and SEC. I don't see it happening, because those conferences are going to cap out at some point. These media deals can't continue to just grow exponentially from everything I've heard. It's different than what I said last year, because it seems like media companies are kind of cutting back a little bit. They're going to tighten things up. This does. So if you say in a couple of years, Florida State and Clemson peace out, and maybe even one more team, you have those three teams, you kind of have a little bit of buffer. You kind of wait things out, you're looking ahead to the Big 12 at 2030. Then you can start to look and say, hey, maybe we do more of a Western expansion. You already got these other couple schools. Maybe now, Utah or, Colorado or some of these other schools may decide that they want to join up with the ACC. Maybe they get more money out of it. That's when you kind of hit again. So I think I don't think this continues the death knell of the ACC. I think the ACC is about to change in a couple of years, but I think this was a good move to solidify the future so that it's not, it's not the Pac-12. That's basically what I want to say there. So that's my thoughts. I think for BC, I like it. They're going to continue to have more. I as someone who covers it, I love seeing new teams play Boston College and Stanford. I think I'm a big fan of playing Stanford. Cal's fine, and SMU is good. So you get Texas and two California teams. I think it's cool. And I think the way that the ACC might just have to figure it out so that it's not insane for the athletes is you're going to have West Coast trips. If you're playing Cal and Stanford, say you're playing men's soccer and you're playing against Cal and Stanford, schedule them back to back. And I don't know what it's going to be like for those schools, because they're going to have to travel all over the place. But, schedule it back to back, and maybe you just got to be creative with the way you schedule things. So that's my thoughts there. Now we'll be back again tomorrow, again with Tom Devitt. On Friday, we're going to preview the game, Holy Cross game. We'll hear what Mitch has to say. We'll get into our picks of the week, including we're going to have to look at that Cyhawk game between Iowa and Iowa State. Will we take the over on a 30? I think it's a 37.5 over under. You'll have to wait to hear our thoughts on that. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Again, on Eagle Insider. Just, bookmark the page. Come check out our work there. Thank you all so much for supporting our work. We really do appreciate it. We know it's not easy when you're following a team like Boston College is playing like the way they are, but we love you all. Thank you all so much for listening. Take care, everyone.